From WJFF in Jeffersonville, New York, this is Radio Chatskill. I'm your host, Harold Tighe. Coming up on today's show, it's the Culture Club, a look at the arts and culture in the Catskills in northeastern Pennsylvania. We'll be chatting with author John DiLeo, a classic film connoisseur who's written 6 books on the golden age of Hollywood. Welcome back to the Culture Club. I'm Harold Tighe. Earlier this week, I sat down with author, lecturer, and classic film expert John DiLeo. Our interview took place in his basement office that he calls The Vault. It's covered with classic film memorabilia. Here's our conversation. Thank you for welcoming me into your home. We're here with John DiLeo, a classic film author and expert here in his home. And good morning. Thank you for coming on Culture Club.
Thank you for inviting me, Harold. It's good to be with you.
So some of our listeners may not know who John DiLeo is. So could you give us a little scoop on who is John DiLeo?
Well, as you said, author of books about classic movies. I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, and I'm up to book number 6, which is coming out in a few weeks. It's called 10 Movies at a Time, a 350-film journey through Hollywood and America, 1930 to 1970.
And the 10 movies at a time is 10 movies from the decade?
Well, it works in 2 ways. Each chapter deals with 10 movies, so I'm sort of, analyzing, examining, delving into and reviewing 10 movies at a time, but they're all connected by the fact that they came out at about the same time. So whether it's the same decade or even the same half decade or even 2 years within a decade. So it's always 10 movies I'm dealing with, and they're at that roughly the same time. So cool. I travel chronologically through the 4 decades of essentially the golden age of Hollywood.
Cool. This isn't your first book, though.
No, I said number 6. I've been my first one came out in 1999, and it was my quiz book, which is And You Thought You Knew Classic Movies. But I think it was new to me, and I wasn't sure I could do this. So starting with a quiz book was kind of a way to sort of dip my toes in the water and see if I could do it, because there was not that much writing. It was more about coming up with what I hoped were clever ideas for testing people's knowledge. And with each book, I think it sort of raises the challenge for the next one. The second one had shorter essays. That was 100 great film performances you should remember but probably don't. And then I was encouraged to go for, larger essays in my book, Screensavers. And, one thing leads to another. And it sort of, like I said, makes you feel more confident for the next one. And sort of also encourages you to figure out new ways to deal with essentially the same area of subject matter.
Now, I see from your website, johndileo.com, that not only are you an author, but you are an interviewer. So it must be really weird, first of all, to be interviewed. But I see that you've interviewed a few people.
Well, I lucked out, and it was totally a coincidence that I happen to live a few blocks away from the Black Bear Film Festival, which happens here in Milford every October. And I guess somebody involved in 2005 knew of me, because I was still fairly new to the area, and they had gotten the actor Farley Granger to come. And someone said, "We're so excited we got him to come," but then we realized, what do we do with him? They said, "Wait, I know that guy John. He knows all about this stuff. I bet he could talk to him." So they showed his one of his Hitchcock movies, Strangers on a Train.
Right.
And before it, I interviewed him on the stage as a, sort of, exciting lead up to the actual screening of the classic movie. And then it's become a thing. So in the years since, it hasn't been every year, but almost every year, on the stage, either before a movie or after a movie that the person is in, I interviewed Arlene Dahl and Marge Champion and Keir DeLay and Gary Cooper's daughter and Jane Powell. And last year we had Rex Reed, and next month, we have Tab Hunter coming. I think I covered them all, but so we're very excited. It's been great to get, you can see how excited the audience gets, because it's essentially a small town, and we get these people that so many of the audience grew up with, and here they are in the room with us, and it's very exciting. Of course, for me, because it's my subject, I'm getting to meet people I never thought I'd meet.
I know. I like Keir Dullea and Jane Powell. I mean, these are icons of the golden age of movies.
And I think they've really all been wonderful. When personally, we've had such a good time. They've been so happy to be honored. They've enjoyed the show we kind of put on for them in terms of treating them right. And it's been a joy for me. I think it's been a joy for the people who attend the events. And I think the stars leave kind of feeling like, wow, I'm glad I did that.
And I also see that you're on a regular radio show also.
I actually have 2 regular spots. It's 2 live spots. Every Thursday around 4 o'clock, I'm on a radio show outside of Englewood, Florida, or in Englewood, Florida. And then every Friday night at like 10 to 6, I'm have a 10-minute spot on Canada Talks on Sirius XM, the Arlene Bynon show. And so that's fun. I talk about different things on different shows. But yeah, so I like doing radio. I'm usually, when the phone rings, I just start talking and assume it's being, transmitted.
So tell us a little more about your upcoming event. You're going to be at the Berryville Arts event on October 7th over in Shahola.
Yeah, I have a friend who is in the Berryville Area Arts Association, and she kind of hooked me up with the rest of the group, and sort of, I've been invited to do one of my film clips programs that I often do at, seminars or book signings or at film festivals, like Black Bear. And I'm doing a program for part of their celebration of cinematic arts. This particular one I'm doing I call it Bloopers, Secrets, and Surprises. And it's kind of fun because when I say bloopers, people rightly assume I'm talking about things that were left on the cutting room floor because they're obvious flubs and they couldn't be used. But I'm actually using it in a different way. It's actual mistakes that are in the movies. So all the clips I show are in the actual movies. And they're all famous movies. Some of them are great classics, but they're little flubs. Sometimes there's a wandering stagehand or a little kid who's an extra doing something he shouldn't. Or, there's costume mistakes where there's a continuity thing where someone's wearing something and then they're not wearing something and then they are again. Or a hat is facing one way and you cut back and it's turned around. So stuff like that, which the audiences love it because it's movies they've seen and you're sitting there thinking, how did I never notice this? Well, I don't think audiences notice these kinds of things until we came to this age of, video where you could suddenly have something in your house and watch it 10 times and then you start to see things. But when these movies were made, whether the mistakes were caught or not, the assumption had to be that nobody's going to catch this on one viewing. They're not going to be looking over there. They're looking at the center where the action is. And so it's fun. Also in the show, I've got a couple of things of spotting famous stars when they were just walk-on players. And like, can you name who that is when this person is not known for that hair color or, is not known for having one line. They're known for being very, very famous. So there's that kind of stuff too.
It seems like every time a big movie comes out, shortly thereafter, if you go online, you can find somebody saying, "Oh, by the way, did you see the water bottle in scene 7?" And that kind of thing. And they're doing a Civil War film, and here's this plastic water bottle or something.
Exactly. So. And for old movies, there isn't quite that kind of police that's out there, and these things are discovered by somebody, and then word of mouth, they're passed on. And I've been one of the people, passing them on. It's funny, when the Dancer March champion was one of the guests at Black Bear, I did this program that year there, and she said, "Hey, you don't have my thing from Showboat in there." I said, "What's your thing from Showboat?" And it was that thing with the hat. It was a dance number with her husband Gower, and through most of it, the hat is facing in one direction, and then if you're watching, it flips. It was turned around, put on her, backwards, and then at the end, it's back the other way. And because you're watching them dance, you're really not looking at her hat. But that's the kind of thing. And Showboat is a very famous movie that was extremely popular, so I'd never heard that before until she told me. I think it was something she kept secret for a while, but now it's kind of fun to share.
Oh, sure. I mean, it kind of, we always think of the movies as they're always perfect.
Exactly.
And here's this, especially someone with the stature of Marge, champion to say, "Oh my God, look at her hat."
Right.
So, So you do so much with movies. Have you done one yourself? Have you been in a movie yet?
You know, it's funny. I did start out as an actor. I never really did movies. I was a theater person, but I did have that classic moment of being, discovered. It didn't go anywhere, but I was an extra in a little movie called The Jerky Boys. It was filmed in 1994,
Hmm.
and it was a typical scene of someone getting out of a police car and going into a courthouse, and I was one of the reporters shoving a microphone. We've seen it about a million times in movies and TV, and I was one of the people the director said, we're giving you a line. It was like Lana Turner at Schwab's drugstore being
Right.
discovered. And I did get a line, and we spent the whole day shooting it. And we even had a looping session right after to make sure the lines were clear, recorded again. Nothing came of it. But I did have that. That was a fun day, though, I have to say. So
can
that was my
imagine.
movie career.
There you go, your movie career. Theater, you said you're a theater guy, and that's really my passion. Have you done anything lately in the theater?
No, I have to say, I was totally obsessed with the theater. I went to school. I lived in New York for 13 years, did theater out of town and in town, nothing big. I'd never got to off or Broadway itself. It was mostly off and tours and summer stock and that kind of thing. But when I was in my mid 30s and I was starting to feel like it maybe wasn't going to happen for me, it's when I started to write, and because movies were my other passion as a lover of them, not because I wanted to be in them necessarily. So I started writing, and when I got the first book sold, which was in 1997, I took that as a sign. It was like, okay, Act Two, and I left it behind, and I haven't done any kind of acting at all in 20 years. And you know what? That's an interesting thing, though. I don't miss it at all because I'm still in the arts. I still try to communicate, but instead of necessarily showing up and speaking lines, I'm trying to get a laugh in print. I'm still communicating and still trying to get attention and be recognized for something I'm doing, something creative. And so I think if you can satisfy those urges, those needs in a different way, you don't feel the loss of the thing you thought was going to be your thing. And so it was about as easy a transition as I think anyone could have from one career to another.
Having done my share of summer stock out of Forestburg, so many of you have, the professional actors have this creative spirit that they just have to satisfy. And this is apparently satisfying yours at the moment.
Yeah. And I think the theater is a great thing to be in, whatever you do later, because there's nothing like working on something with a group of people with a common goal and putting yourself out there in a risky situation. I mean, it really prepares you for anything, I think. So I always recommend at least a stint in the theater at some point in one's life.
Yes, it's trust me, I love it. It's there's nothing like live
Nothing
theater.
like it.
Okay, and I've had my share of moments on stage. So,
Right.
so what else will be happening at the Berryville Arts?
Well, I'm part of the event starting at 4 o'clock. There's also going to be on display cinema-related artifacts and an exhibit by local artists. So it looks like there will be enough going on. As I said, they're calling it a celebration of the cinematic arts at the Artist Market Community Center, and it's, as I said, sponsored by the Berryville Area Arts Association. So I'm looking forward to it. I think they have some cool artifacts, and I'll be there with the movie stars in clip form on DVD.
And I see we're sitting here in your office, which is just covered with pictures from classic movies. Will any of this art be available that day?
No,
Or looking?
this is I call it the vault. This is the private collection, but I like to do stuff down here. Like I said, if someone comes to the house for an interview or something, it's an inspiring place because, as you said, we're surrounded by black and white and color 8x10s and posters and magazine covers. And I don't actually write down here, but it is sort of this is my inspiration because it's all the stuff I collected as a young person. I'm 56. I'm too old to be collecting. I'm more about enjoying what I've already got. And so instead of having stuff in boxes, I think at some point you have to decide if you're going to keep stuff, you got to appreciate it and enjoy it. So I come down here at least once a day and do stuff down here, and I love just being around all my stuff. And like I said, a lot of it I've had since I was a teenager. So it's really been a part of me. And I always say to people who've come down for the first time, I say, it's like being in the inside of my head. It's like, welcome to my part of my brain.
Now, I see all these things. Are you an autograph collector too, or is that not really part of your...
I'm not really a collector. I have to say, I did have one of the greatest nights of my life at age 15. In 1976, I got my parents to take me to the New York City premiere of That's Entertainment Part 2 at the Ziegfeld Theater. And I stood at the top of the escalator, and I guess I was young enough that people thought, he's just a kid, he's not bothering anybody. I just asked everyone who came up for their autograph, and it was quite a night. So I met Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly, who were my idols, and I talked to both, and they both signed my book. And some of the people I ended up interviewing, like 40 years later, Arlene Dahl and Marge Champion were there, and I got their autographs too. An interesting story, and I hold no grudge. Cary Grant was there, and I went up to him and said, "Mr. Grant, can I have your autograph?" And he said, "No, thank you." And some people were like, "Oh, I hate him after that." And I was like, I didn't know at the time he didn't give autographs, and he wasn't rude. He was just telling it like it is, and hey, I had a conversation with Cary Grant. Not
Absolutely.
So bad.
Not many people can say that. So what's next for John DiLeo? We have a book coming out.
Well, yeah, 10 Movies at a Time comes out in a few weeks. And usually it takes, with books, it usually takes about a year to try to think of everything you can do to help push it. Every sort of strand you haven't thought of what might lead to something, or a public event, or an interview like this, or something where I'm always on the lookout. And usually after a year it winds down, and then you start to think, okay, that's over, or sort of over. And then it usually takes maybe another year after that to feel that urge again of a new idea or something, because I think I always joke that it must be like what childbirth is for women. When you're about to give birth, you're thinking, well, I'm never doing this again. And then maybe 2 years later, you think, oh, it'd be nice to have a baby. So yeah. I think it's like books are like that, too. Just when you've convinced yourself, I'm never putting myself through the 2 years it takes, and then the trying to promote after that, 3 years altogether. But maybe then another 2 years go by, and you think, what would be fun? To sit down and write a book.
Some people just never learn their lesson.
I think a lot of us are that person.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for taking time out of your day. And I know you mentioned the other day when we were on the phone that you're editing your table of contents and index and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
The tedium of putting the book together.
Maddening last minute details. Yes.
Yeah. So somebody calls and says, "Oh, by the way, the period's in the wrong place on that page." And
better now than later.
Yes. Right? And so thank you so much for taking time out of your day, and we'll talk to you soon, I hope. Thank you for being on the Culture Club.
Thank you, Harold. I enjoyed it very much.
John will be appearing at the Berryville Area Arts Celebration of Cinematic Art October 7th from 4 to 6 p.m. at 114 Richardson Avenue, Shahola, Pennsylvania. For more information, go to berryvilleareaarts.org. You're listening to the Culture Club on WJFF's Radio Chatskill. We'll be right back after this short break.